Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this second Digital Pan-Asian FP&A board. Today we'll be talking about building winning FP&A teams for the new normal. My name is Hans Gobin. I am the London International Board Ambassador, founder member of the London Board, and I will be facilitating the meeting today. Joining us is Larissa Malnichuk, the founder of FP&A Trends and the person behind FP&A boards. She will be taking us through the Q&A sessions towards the end. Let me quickly remind you of the agenda for today. FP&A teams and skills required in the new normal. We will talk about sustaining and motivating FP&A teams, agile FP&A, technology enhancement for FP&A teams, bots in FP&A teams, FP&A recruitment in the new normal, conclusion and recommendation, and finally, we will go through to our Q&A session. A quick reminder of FP&A Trends Group and what we do. We today have 27 chapters in 27 cities in 16 countries. We also do FP&A education, so you know about our online resourcing, and we also have AI and ML FP&A committee and carry out surveys and research. A reminder of the meetings we have had in Asia so far and the hot topics we've discussed. I will not go into detail. Also a reminder that the last webinar we had a month or so ago, we spoke of adapting financial planning and analysis to the new normal. It's a good time to start by thanking our sponsors today. Our first sponsor is SAP, one of the world's leading provider of modern FP&A solution. Thank you very much, SAP. Our second sponsor is Michael Page, again, a leading provider in professional recruitment consultancies. Thank you, Michael Page. Our third partner, our global education partner is AFP. AFP provide treasury certification as well as FP&A certification across the world. Thank you very much to all our three sponsors. It is now a good time to introduce the speakers. Our first speaker today is Mr. Rex Gu, who's CFO at Maersk Group, Far East Operation, and a member of our Shanghai FP&A board. Today, Rex will be taking us through his experiences of FP&A teams and skills required in the new normal. Hello, Rex. Nice to have you with us.
Thanks, Hans.
Thank you very much. Our second speaker today is Anna Brueva, FP&A Director at Royal Philips, also an Amsterdam FP&A board member. She will be taking us through how she is sustaining, motivating her team in the new normal. Hello, Anna. Nice to have you with us. Thank you. You were on mute.
Hello, everyone. Yes, it's good. Hello, everyone.
Thank you, Anna. Our third speaker today is Svenja Amrem. She is country CFO and licensed to operate lead in Roche Pharma in Sweden. She's also a Stockholm FP&A board member, and today she will be talking to us about agile FP&A. Hello, Svenja. Nice to have you with us.
Hi, Hans. Nice being here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our fourth speaker today is Selva Raja, who heads up the Global Center of Excellence for Analytics and Insight at SAP Asia Pte Limited. Raj today will be taking us through technology enhancement for FP&A. Hello, Raj. Nice to have you with us.
Hi, Hans. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our fifth speaker today is Brian Lapidus, who's director and is the FP&A subject lead subject matter expert at AFP. Brian will today give us an insight on bots in FP&A team. Hello, Brian. Nice to have you with us today.
Pleased to be here.
Thank you very much. And finally, our final speaker for today is Amanda Wu, who currently heads up finance practice for Michael Page and join us from the Hong Kong office. Amanda will today be telling us of the latest trends in recruitment in the new normal in the region. Hello, Amanda.
Hi, Hans. Thank you.
Nice to have you with us. Thank you very much. What a great panel we have today across Asia, USA, and Europe. Looking forward to a fantastic presentation. What is the digital FP&A board and the format? So the webinar is on for 90 minutes. Participation, we've got 4 polls, so we'll ask you to vote in those polls. Interactive session, so Q&As. Please, you can start asking questions via the chat box if you would like as soon as the first presentation is over. It is open, by the way. You can network with our speakers through LinkedIn. Please take part in the brief survey at the end of our session. Your feedback is very valuable to us. Before we move on to our presentation, I would just quickly like to set the scene and take you briefly through the 5 critical roles FP&A, the 5 critical FP&A team roles for a successful FP&A. The model was developed with insight from FP&A board around the world. As you can see, we have the architect, the data scientist, the analyst, the storyteller, and the influencer. These are key roles that we believe we need in our team for a very successful FP&A. And our speakers will be touching on each one of them through their presentation. It is now a good time for me to pass the stage to Rex Gu, CFO at Maersk Far East Operation, who is going to take us through FP&A teams and skills required in the new normal. Rex, over to you.
Thanks, Hans, for having me today for this webinar. Let's start the session with a quote from Charles Darwin. It is not the strongest or the most intelligent who will survive, but those who can best manage change. I think this quote is best fitting for many organizations, many companies, many industries, certainly for the FP&A profession. And let's go through the next slide, where I will be able to share with you some of our reflections and learnings in the journey so far this year in the new normal. First, starting with resilient scenario planning, what is required from the FP&A teams. The modern day business environment are complex, dynamic, and highly dependent on a number of external factors, ranging from advances in technologies to trade wars between superpowers. And then there are real black swan events that erupts the entire world order. Today, the COVID-19 pandemic has brought the global economics to grinding halt. In such context, it is the responsibility of the FP&A team to guide business leaders towards making informed decisions by making sense of the complexity and integrating the scenario planning. In any business, the results are affected by the set of internal and external factors or variables. However, there's only a few key factors or variables that is influencing the organization's result more than others. And those are at the same time exposed to greater level of uncertainties. In the case of Maersk, a global leading transport and logistics company, our key variables or factors over the past many months are first, global export-import demand, second, the global oil prices, and the third, our fleet operation in a COVID-19 reality. As those factors become clear to us, the commercial and operational decisions are empowered by FP&A teams are essentially around the matrix of different scenarios. For example, what if the global export-import demand should drop by 20% and the oil price dropped by 30%. Meanwhile, most of our fleet are unaffected by COVID-19. What should be the most optimal pricing and deployment plans we should adopt? Or alternatively, if the volume demand dropped by 30%, oil price dropped by 40%, and a number of our fleet was operationally impacted by COVID-19 due to the crew confirmed due to the cases, what should be the best plan? It is worthy to mention that our minds are likely to disregard negative outcome that is a low probability and overestimate the likelihood of the best case scenarios. FP&A team must play devil's advocate and challenge assumptions that business leaders make instead of simply creating the ideal base case scenarios on a spreadsheet. Just because a certain outcome has not occurred in the past does not really mean it will not happen in the future. I believe all of us have collectively learned a few lessons so far this year. The next pointers will be the restructured, recomposed revenue streams. I will use again Maersk as example to elaborate this point. Not everybody knows Maersk.com website is one of the largest B2B websites in the world, handling $20 billion in transaction last year. Over the past few months this year, we have seen a drastic uptick in terms of Maersk mobile app usage, which is different than the website, an increase of nearly 90% so far this year when customers using the app quoting, schedule checking, and shipment tracking for their containers. We have taken full advantage of this changed customer behavior, and FP&A teams are able to enable the credit card solution for a number of business transactions in the mobile apps, such as pay your storage fees to the terminals. Another example actually happened here in Shanghai, in China, that during the January-February this year, the Chinese port terminals, this part of the world, are congested with refrigerated containers, reefer containers, that's what we call, contained with the frozen meat, frozen seafood. That is because of the truckers available in the market due to the COVID-19 lockdowns. At that time, we can either shut down the future months' business or the imports of the frozen meat, or wait until things are better, or we could find an innovative way to store these refrigerated containers. That's where the FP&A team comes to the picture. We offered the business an economically sensible solution of hiring vessels floating in the sea, serving as a cold chain warehouse, meanwhile by charging our customers for the storage service we provided. It was a recommendation that with solid financials that keep our business flowing, for our customers' business not being interrupted, and at the same time, we've made a few bucks out of it. The next point is I want to elaborate is really repurposed budgeting and forecasting. First of all, we should articulate the difference between budget and forecasting. A budget draws a static line in the sand, reflecting what an organization thinks is achievable based on available knowledge and information made a few months before the start of the financial year, usually in Q4. By contrast, the quarterly forecasting, rolling forecast, or some may call ROFO, are a dynamic tool to bridge the performance gap in light of the actual market dynamics. The budget process, however, is intrinsically flawed, according to a recent survey run by KPMG. The budget was a politically agreed number, I believe most of you can resonate with that, used by individuals and teams to meet their own performance objectives. Few truly acknowledge the real purpose of the budgeting process. Meanwhile, the same survey revealed that the forecasting as an enabler for decision-making is also lost and has become just another report that automated systems throw at us, another set of numbers to explain. So where does this leave us, the FP&A professionals? So what is our roles in that? Personally, I believe it is a job of the FP&A team to demonstrate the different roles and values that budgeting and forecasting processes can bring to the table. Finance can achieve this by setting the right tone at the review meetings, by deploying the rigor, by reviewing the output, and by challenging the assumptions made by the business. This will elevate FP&A teams and to a large extent the finance function to becoming the true partners to the business, not just a back end of office function or running the process at some point of the year. The last pointer is reimagined and analytics. I want to use a quote. It's not a beautiful quote, but it goes like this. If you are not part of the solution, you must be part of the problem. It may hold true to FP&A teams that analytical works we're churning out here, day in, day out, must be able to deliver an impact upon certain problems. And we need to elevate from producing insights to exerting influence and ultimately to creating impact and value for the company and organization. One of the speakers later today will elaborate further on this pointer, so I will probably skip this pointer. Next slide, please. Hans, next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. I want to highlight the communication is absolutely key for FP&A teams in the new normal. I just offer three sort of suggestions. Number one, speak in a language that business leaders can understand. As I mentioned, there will be a lot of simulations, scenario plannings in the new normal given the market dynamics. But don't forget, when we speak these complicated financial terms, models, please speak a language the business can understand. Otherwise, you just lost the opportunity to convey your message. The next point is, in the new normal, business will be tough. Many companies, many industries are suffering, and business leaders as well. So when we communicate, collaborate with our business leaders, speak with a mindset of empathy, understand their pressure, understand their anxieties. And the last pointer, I'll refer to the graphic on the right. That's commonly known as the trust equation. Trust is essential in boosting the communication between the FP&A teams and the business. So the equation, simply put, is the credibility plus reliability and in conjunction with intimacy, to be divided by self-orientation or self-interest. I'll just give you guys a second to thought about that. Thanks, Hans.
Thank you very much, Rex. Great presentation, and how you brought everything together in the new normal, obviously, as far as teams and skills is concerned, from scenario planning to your revenue stream to budgeting, forecasting to reimagine analytics. That's a great point of view. I would like to ask Anna to give us a comment on the presentation, please, Anna.
Yeah, sure. So thanks a lot, Rex, for sharing your experience in the new normal in these challenging times. And first of all, congratulations, because I think it's great to see that you mobilized your team and yourself not only to address what, but also to address how. So from what side you address the, leveraging on scenario planning and revising the revenue streams to keep the revenue going. So that is really great. But also on the how part, thinking about your business partners, right? Thinking on how you communicate with empathy, with a little patience, and of course, keeping in mind that trust is very important for all the business relationships. So that's great. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you very much, Anna. Svenja, your comments, please.
Sure. So thanks, Rex. I very much like how you explained also the evolution of the finance team, of how you moved to really be a wingman to the business. And that's an evolution that's absolutely key. It was nicely alluded. And not to forget how important it is to understand the reality of your business. And that was also very, very nicely pointed out. Thanks very much, Rex.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Anna, and thank you very much, Rex, for a great presentation. We now move on to our first polling question. I'm just about to launch the polling question. And you can now see the polling question. If you can start voting, please. So the first question is, what is the favorite FP&A team role that you like to play? The architect, the data scientist, the analyst, the storyteller, or the influencer? If you could vote, please. We have got 40% votes already. I will be closing the votes very, very shortly. Thank you. I'm just about to close the vote. Thank you. Thank you very much for voting. And I will now share the results on the screen. And I would like to ask Rex to give us his view on the results, please.
Thanks, Hans. Just looking, the result looks like majority of the participants have choosing the influencer, which is fantastic. It is perfectly matched on what I shared before. And it's to become the insight provider, actually to influencer, and ultimately creating impact and create value for the companies. I'm happy to see the storytellers actually taking that next spot. Storyteller actually refers to the communication skills, techniques, building relationship rapport with the business leaders, creating trust. I'm very happy to see it is there. Thanks.
Thank you, Rex. Anna, your quick view on the poll, please.
Yeah, so that is, in my view, not surprising, because also, if I understand, the audience here is on the influencing side. So people that really focus on the business impact, business results, and of course they leverage on the storytelling and on other roles. But I think the influencer is what is really needed at this moment to get to the business outcomes.
Thank you very much, Anna. Thank you for your insight. Yes, we can see the soft skills are much more being played on at this point in time. Thank you. I'm now going to hide the polls, and we will now move on to our next. Oh, sorry. We will now move on to our next speaker, which is Anna. And Anna will be talking to us on sustaining and motivating FP&A teams. Anna, ready when you are. The stage is yours.
Yes, thank you. Yes, so I'd like to start with Michael Jordan's quote: "Talents wins games, but teamwork and intelligence wins championships." So this quote resonates with me a lot, because in business, like in a team sport, you can only get this far using your own talent and capabilities as a leader. But it takes a functioning, sustainable team to get to the great and lasting success. So working in the FP&A domain, I'm as passionate about team development and team energy as I am about the numbers and processes. So today I'm happy to share with you some of the experiences we've had in the team dynamics in the new normal, and also share some strategies that prove to be useful for the teams to stay motivated and keep performing in the challenging times. But let me start off with a story about a colleague. Let's name her Susie. So just before the lockdown in the Netherlands that happened in March, Susie was actually quite positive about working from home 100%. She would save some time commuting, spend more quality time with her family, and even do some exercise and sports during the lunches she always wanted. Approximately a month later, I again connected to Susie, and she sounded very different. She was all frustrated, nervous, and far from positive. She explained that it felt to her like instead of actually doing her work, she was spending a lot of her time proving to her counterparts that she was actually working and not chilling on the couch. So she felt lack of trust and being constantly micromanaged by her team manager. Now later, when she brought it to her manager, she learned that it was just her interpretation of manager's actions. Her manager was simply checking in regularly and trying his best to offload her and her team members. I imagine that many people feel like Susie or felt like Susie during those times. It's a lot of changes to deal with and to process. Work environment, routines, and pace impacted all of us. So from the next slide, we will learn that Susie experienced mental and emotional stress. She was feeling frustrated, not being able to focus on her work, and actually it drained so much energy and focus from her, let alone her engagement in the team matters was very low. And many of us experience several, if not all type of stress while adjusting to the new situation. So it's our job as leaders to lower the stress levels for the teams wherever possible so they can perform and keep the focus. And it was understandably much more difficult for the leaders to get the signs of stress in the team because we're all working remotely, we're connecting only via calls or for the short messages, or all those signs could be easily slipped away from our attention. Now, on the next slide, I want to talk about just a few strategies that were used to keep the energy and motivate the teams. So building and maintaining trust. Rex already mentioned that trust is crucial, and we all know that trust in the team is essential. It's not only about being able to openly talk about your emotions and how you feel, which is of course very important. It's also about creating this the space for the healthy conflict, for the disagreement and active engagement in the team. Passive participation, agreement to everything, and lack of involvement into discussions are all the signs for the leader to open this dialogue, create and execute rules of engagement, and actually lead by example. So when we think about it, I think everyone experienced all the signs, and it's good to think how we approach that and how we deal with that. That actually leads to the next one, to the next point, involving team members. For example, agreeing on the right way and time to connect is very important nowadays. And we need to ensure also as leaders, we need to ensure that we have a full presence in the meetings. Of course, it's very challenging not to get distracted in the current time and age because we are all sitting behind our computers. We can all multitask and get carried away by certain actions. But it's important to keep ourselves and the teams laser focused and engaged into the discussions. So things like revising duration of the meetings, not making them too long, having the breaks, turning your webcam on, and use engagement techniques like active brainstorming are just a few things that all of us can do. And one additional thing that worked well in the teams is the buddy system. Employees were encouraged to pick a buddy from the team so they can stay connected and have regular check-ins with each other, especially in the beginning of lockdown. And actually that allowed people to vent about everything that was going on all the fronts. They could release the pressure and get some empathy and support from the teammates, because who would better understand how to combine challenging work and family and everything as your teammate. The next point was about the self-care, promoting self-care. So typically leaders are seen as superman and superwomen, being able to juggle the family life, hitting business results, and taking care of the team. However, you know how draining it can be if a person doesn't have time to recharge and run on an empty tank. It also may give our own example and set expectations to the team to work in the same pace, which is not always sustainable. I have an example of a colleague who was telling me that for several days in a row, he was having his breakfast only at 1 p.m. And we all know sometimes it can be necessary because deadlines are pressing, and it could be something we need to do for a few times. That is fine, but having it as a routine is not sustainable and will lead to health and performance troubles on the long run. So these type of signs are the red flags for leaders to step in. And establishing self-care routine for yourself, like taking breaks, exercising during the day, or having no emails to the team at least on a weekend, are all the healthy habits. And promoting it within a team proved to release a lot of stress and create healthy environment to achieve results. So last but not the least is the celebrating. celebrating the results, celebrating the achievements. It is known that celebrating the achievements is as important as working hard to actually get to those results. And that's what a lot of teams are not doing enough. So we often not acknowledging and celebrating the end of the project, publishing of the important report, or even a good presentation. Instead, we move on to the next topic very quickly. So it becomes a circle of actions, and that's it. So there are a few ways that our team celebrated during the pandemic. So one of the examples was that everyone was ordering pizza and having a pizza party on the Friday afternoon, or a cocktail meeting when every person in the team prepares a favorite drink and introduces it to the team and having a fun conversations and having some team building virtually. One of the examples that was managers were sharing an achievement with the next level leaders and copying the full team involved and having so-called a virtual tap on the shoulder, and many more. So as you see, all these things are inexpensive and they give a lot in return. There are always ways to celebrate and to celebrate results, to celebrate achievements, even the small ones, and this is definitely motivates the team. Well, I'm sure that by now you've all came to your own strategies of leading and motivating your own teams in this challenging day and age, and hopefully some of the examples will serve as an inspiration to you. Thank you.
Anna, thank you very much. What a great presentation. And it's great to see how you've led your team through this very abnormal and challenging times. And thank you very much for so many tips there that I'm sure our panel members as well as our attendees will be very, very happy to put into practice. They are not difficult, they are quite easy, and they don't cost a lot. Thank you very much for that. I would like to ask Rex to give us his comment on the presentation, please. Rex?
Thanks, Hans. I think, thanks, Anna, for this very practical sharing. I think one thing we also talk about here is the psychological safety during the pandemic. I think you just offered a number of, as Hans said, not cost too much, but work solutions. So I appreciate your sharing. Very practical.
Thank you, Rex. Thank you very much. Svenja, could you give us your take on Anna's presentation, please? Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Thank you, Anna. I think it goes without saying, all of us have experienced what you just described. Clearly, COVID puts the leadership skills to quite a new test. What I like very much is how you described how much more intentional one needs to be about connecting with the team and how important it is to not only have formal touch points, but also those informal touch points and how they are important to keep the spirit of the team up. Tuning into the team and creating positive spirit has become even more important in this time where remote work is paired with the crisis we're faced with. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you very much, Svenja, and thank you very much, Anna, for your presentation. This leads us very nicely on to the next polling question, which is polling question 2, and I'm just about to launch that right now. If you could vote, please, and I will read out the question. What is the biggest barrier to team synergy? Is it internal competitiveness? Is it different mindset? Is it poor listening and communication skills? Is it knowledge deficits or a lack of alignment around goals? If you could vote, please. Thank you very much. I can see 30% voted very quickly. I'll give it another 10 seconds. Thank you. I will now close the poll. Thank you very much for all your votes. Thank you. I'm now closing the poll. And I will now share the poll. I would like to ask Anna to give us a view on what we're seeing here as far as the polls are concerned.
Yes, sure. So from what I see here that, the results are different or the results differ. So that means that everyone is experiencing a different situation, which is good and which is normal. And I see that the biggest vote goes to lack of alignment around goals. This is one of the most popular dysfunctions in a team and very common in many teams. So indeed, having the real team goals clearly set is crucial. And then, of course, get into different mindset and poor listening and communication. There are all the symptoms and the root causes of some issues in the team, but can be clearly addressed. So yeah, that's great to see. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Svenja, your take, please.
Yeah, I think the two ones, listening and lack of alignment, are those we need to be even more mindful in the COVID times, because it's even more difficult to listen to other people if you don't talk to them. So you need to be much more mindful about those. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I will now hide the polls, and we will now move on to our next presenter, which is yourself, Svenja, Director of Finance at Roche, who will be taking us through agile working for the FP&A in the new normal. Svenja, please take it away when you're ready.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, also from my side. Do you trust your business to take the right decisions? Today, I will talk about how finance can enable the business to move from a controlling to a trusting environment, and how this impacts the work within the finance team. I picked this particular quote because, to me, it is really at the heart of what I talk about, how important interactions with individuals are, and how we did start to prioritize those over processes and tools. Next, please. Roche is the global pioneer in pharmaceuticals and diagnostics. Our focus is to advance science to improve people's lives through innovation. Combined in the two divisions, we have 75 billion sales and 11 billion investment in research. And as you can tell from this, innovation is really part of Roche's DNA. Next, please. About 3 years ago, we embarked on a massive transformation journey. The picture here is telling you more about the journey and our vision as well. We come from a place where we've been very inward focused and siloed and speaking about the customer. Now we are moving more to a networked way of working and engaging both within the company, but also with our ecosystem, and finally speaking with the customer. And believe it or not, a key change in finance had been one of the starting points of this transformation. I will tell you how. Early 2018, our division took a decision to get rid of a significant part of our planning process. Now, you on the call are all finance professionals, and you all know how we grew up with planning being an important part of what we do. You certainly understand that this change felt so uncomfortable for many of us. Instead of full bottom up from every country, Global started to make more use of predictive models, especially for smaller countries like Sweden. The dialogue with countries like us started to focus more on opportunities and business strategies, and costs and sales were looked at more high level. Next, please. With that in mind, the Swedish finance team was thinking to take this concept even one step further. Not only did they change the planning process, they also had this crazy idea about going beyond budgets for the individual teams, allowing teams to spend what they thought is the right spend level, so they could focus on working with their customers and better understand their needs. When we discussed this idea with the pharma CFO, the Swedish team got the green light to test it, knowing that it might go terribly wrong. When the finance team shared the concept with the business team in Sweden, people really thought they are crazy. How can finance propose to not have budgets? How would we steer our business? Really good questions. Soon, however, people started to love it. Gone were the days where teams had to fight for budgets. Instead, teams started to have a conversation about investment that really matters, facilitated by finance, who supported the business teams with a broader view on opportunities and priorities, so teams could take informed investment decisions. In Sweden, we went from a fully fleshed, time-intense planning on a regular basis to much more focused and event-driven discussions. no need to review the full portfolio when one assumption changes. This enabled also finance to feel a stronger connection to our company purpose. Through their business partners, they started to much better understand what is needed to have an impact for our patients. Just now, we finished our business review for 21. It took us 4 weeks from start to presentation. We involved as few people as possible and still ended up with a very robust storyline, which was well received. And honestly, this is the shortest, most focused planning process I've ever experienced in all my career. Next, please. Of course, this would be a fairy tale if I would tell you that all decisions that had been taken are good decisions. But we also know with budgets, not all decisions are the right ones. Over time, the empowerment on budget decisions created a discussion on leadership needs. The move to no budgets certainly was an important factor to enable a higher level of trust, and it was a key enabler for the much larger transformation that happened just now for us in Sweden. For the full affiliate, we moved from being function-focused to being customer-focused and got rid of some management layers as well. Of course, also finance was impacted. My team now includes many of those roles that are working with our internal customer. This allows us to take the next step to increase influence and impact through targeted services. Next, please. Before I close, a word about our current reality, working from home and COVID. The transformation we embarked on in 2018, of course, never had COVID in mind. It was driven by the assumption that situations change faster in the future. We had never thought this assumption would have been tested so fast. I have to say, for us, it worked really well to date. Our business is still focusing their time engaging with customers, and the finance team keeps looking at assumptions and adjusts total sales on a high level when major assumptions change. We still keep the conversation with the business focused on priorities and opportunities. Of course, this had been a journey, and it's nothing that has changed immediately. Certainly, if you want to embark on a similar journey, it will require a lot of trust from all levels, including senior management. And it needs easy tools for the business teams to support their decision making. And you should be prepared. This change might not be the only change that will happen in the company. You will realize how big of an impact finance processes have on all other business processes too. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Svenja, thank you very much for your great presentation. It shows how much you guys are agile and how much you've been working towards, getting to that forefront, especially, the concept of beyond budgeting and moving away from budgeting has meant that you guys have got a lot of time and then you can put a lot of effort into doing other things. This was, I think, done pre-COVID, but it does help you now to concentrate your effort into looking at what happens next. It was great hearing from you. Thank you very much. I would like to invite Anna to give us her view on Svenja's presentation, please. Anna?
Yes, Svenja, thanks for sharing. It was really interesting to hear how you went through this journey starting 3 years ago. And as you said, the change never comes easy, especially such a big change and, taking into many departments, many countries, etc., etc. But it's great when you see the results, right? So it proves to be working. So this determination and this consistency helps to actually achieve those great outcomes to become more efficient and become more customer centric. And as you said, indeed, also what Hans mentioned, it was all pre-COVID, but it makes you more agile and more prepared to react faster to the changes. So well done, and thanks for sharing that.
Thank you, Anna. I would like to invite Raj to give us his point of view on Svenja's presentation, please, Raj. Hello, Raj.
Yes, I'm here. Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Hi. Thanks, Svenia, for the fantastic presentation. Yes, I know in my line of work, I have been seeing customers who are actually struggling to adopt like a kind of a zero-based budgeting itself, right? And I think in your case, it is. I think I was quite really remarkable to see how you have actually put together a team and then put for finance going across all the departments and explain to them the concept. That is actually one of the critical tasks, to convince the other departments, and I think that was one of the things I really appreciate. I mean, I find it really remarkable in the organization. Yes, thanks.
Thank you, Raj. Thank you very much. Svenja, thank you for a great presentation. Thank you. It is now a good time to move to our next polling question, which is polling question number 3. I am just about to launch it. I've just launched it, so I'm just going to give you a quick read of what we're looking here. So what is the biggest remote work challenge? Working too much? Prioritizing your work? Interruptions? Loneliness and lack of human interaction? Communication issues and being out of the loop? If you can vote, please. Thank you very much. We are 40%, 50% have voted. I'll give it another 10 seconds. Thank you very much. I will now close the poll. Thank you. And I will now share the poll. Thank you very much. Svenja, can I ask you to give us your view on the polling outcome here, please?
Thank you. Yes, I think that's very consistent with what I hear in my closer circles as well, both working too much and communication issues, but also this feeling of loneliness, and clearly being virtual catapults us into having to have calls for every small question we're having, which adds to the working too much. But also the communication issues and this feeling of being out of the loop is a big challenge, because the natural behavior is to have even more calls, which then leads to working too much again. So we need to be super mindful, and I think it's a clear call for us as leaders to help our people through that.
Thank you very much, Svenja. Raj, can you give us your comment on the poll, please?
Yes, I think it looks quite. I think it's understandable. I think with the current challenges in everybody working from home, I think everybody can resonate with Svenja talking about communication as a main issue. Because even in my organization, this is also it's the same problem. How we can able to communicate effectively to our peers and also to our managers, and I think this is what resonated in the poll results.
Thank you very much, Raj. Thank you very much, all of you. I will now hide the polling results, and we now move on to our next session, technology enhancement for FP&A teams. Raj, you are up next. Ready when you are. Raj. Right.
Can you see? Yeah.
Yep. Ready when you are, Raj. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you then. Okay. Thanks, Hans. Today I'm going to talk on technology enhancement for FP&A team. So this actually is the quote from Albert Einstein. The world as we have created, it is a process of our thinking. It cannot be changed without changing our thinking. This is very true. In the new normal, organizations have to embrace the change that's happening around us, and in order to move on or survive in the business. Next slide, please. Now, this is a quite interesting slide. Now, what we have seen here is that there is a paradigm shift in the planning process across the companies that I've seen. Before the new normal, companies usually planned and analyze report on a monthly basis. Now, in the new normal, we have seen the whole businesses has gone upside down. We have seen demand and services have significantly dropped, and then we have seen companies are trying to deploy their resources to their different stores, rushing to do that. So what I've seen here is that the planning cycles are becoming not only on monthly, it's moved to a daily basis. Now CFOs have been talking to us, saying that they want to have a way how we can be able to plan on a weekly basis, do some prediction on a weekly basis, and analyze on a weekly basis. This trend is happening right now. Next slide, please. Okay, so you can see here, most companies have streamlined their operations by automating their repetitive tasks like bank reconciliation or receipt matching. So this is supposed to increase make their cost efficiency and maybe make compliance process. But so this also allows the finance users to have more insight to their current data, and hence you find out now this is what happened in the past, but now in the new normal. Next slide, please. So what is in the new normal that can help them is that they need to adopt an advanced analytic solutions. This will actually help. This is the answers to the new normal. Here you can see that the finance will have equal time. They can spend time on a backward-looking data to look at the real-time insights of the data. At the same time, they can look at the forward-looking data to get predictive insights on the trends, and at the same time, this will help the businesses, to proactively steer in the right direction. Next slide, please. Okay, this is quite a busy slide here. So let me explain what this slide talks about. Here I am. In the previous slide, I explained about why advanced analytics is critical for an organizations. But here, how technology is going to support the advanced analytics. In fact, technology has surpassed in terms of adapting to any situations. So now we have a single tool that able to answer all of these questions. For example, if I want to understand what has happened to my profit, why my a particular branch margin has gone down through visualization of data. So now we have tools that can support both reporting and visualization. But on top of that, if let's say if the customers wants to understand how to predict, I have a lot of past data, I want to run some prediction modeling on top of that, they can run prediction at the same time, so they can find out what could happen if I in the next 3 months or 4 months if my current data set, and also with my current actuals already there, can I plan on the same data set so I don't have to move around? So we have tools from the technology side that can support both reporting, visualization, prediction, and plan. Now, plan not only covers financial, it also covers across all line of businesses. So that means it involves every department. For example, it can be coming from HR, it can be coming from marketing or IT. The thing here is that in the past, normally financial planning will happens in a finance team, and then they just wait for the other departments to submit. But here I'm talking about a collaborative enterprise planning, where the finance will set a target, and everyone in the organization, every LOB in the organization will collaborate online in real time and submit the budget, and the data immediately on online itself. And this in fact will help to cut down the planning cycles from months to weeks to even to days. So we have seen companies have reaped the benefit from having all of this done in a single platform. Next slide, please. Now I want to share with you some of the customers who have embraced technology and how they've actually reaped the benefits, the value from the technology itself. So I've identified 3 processes here. The plan to perform. Okay, we have planning process and forecasting and the analysis process, and I also talk about the capabilities delivered and the platform they have used. Now, one of the companies, I also look at the companies, and then let's look at the companies what they've achieved. Next slide. So if you look at the first company, which is a 64 billion aerospace and defense company, this is actually, they are based in USA. Now, moment when they adopted the solution itself, and what they've seen is that you see an immediate reduction of 70% first. And then in fact, now they have seen the planning cycles reduced by 90%. And what in through here, what they have achieved is that they've kind of done a strategic alignment of their goals. They can do a strategic planning across all the departments. They can able to respond, quickly for any changes. So hence you can see that there's a big improvement in the planning cycles. And another company here, which is the 6 billion largest manufacturer of packaging products. Now here, interestingly, here is that prior to going to technology, they were using Excel, and then what happens is that they have huge challenges. They took about 25 days to come out with their sales forecast, but the moment when they adopt a particular tool itself, and then it comes down to 5 days. Not only that, they can able to, the sales team can able to deploy kind of a predictive modeling and see that what is my trend will be for the next 3 months. And finally, on the last one, we talk about another company in UK. This is a 22 billion company on the financial sector. And here, they took about 20 hours to run a cost allocation. And at that time, especially for a big company like them, profitability is a key thing to be submitted to all the branch. And then they took a long time to do that. With the adoption of a tool, they realized that it cuts down by almost to 10 minutes. And every branch, can have their profitability reports immediately in their folder. Next slide, please. Yeah, so I would like to summarize here. This is actually a survey that with FP&A Teams done a survey this year for look at the trends. In summary, what happened is that the survey is to highlight organizations best in class FP&A teams when compared to the average organizations. What we have seen is that FP&A team must focus its efforts on high value added tasks, and we realize that this is a huge challenge for companies that was surveyed. And on average, you can see that only 26% of the time is spent on driving action and insight generation, and majority of the time is done on a low value activities. But if you compare to best in class organizations, this increases to 80%. So that means they spend more of the time on high value activities. With this, I will conclude my presentation. Thanks, Hans.
Thank you very much, Raj. Thank you for a great presentation, and thank you for bringing to light how technology is being used and how it reduces the amount of time spent on some of the key activities that we currently do. I would like to ask Rex to give us his comment on Raj's presentation, please. Rex?
Thanks for the great sharing, Raj. You take us through the technologies that are currently available that could modernize the FP&A space. I take two notes here. One is you mentioned a few times in terms of the proactive business steering. I think this echoes very much to the FP&A value creation model, right? From descriptive to predictive and to prescriptive. And second point, you mentioned about the technologies can take finance through in the planning stage where the financial data and also the non-financial data can concurrently run it in a collaborative manner across functions in a real time and effective and efficient manner. This is very inspirational. Thanks for the sharing. We have a lot to do, seems.
Thank you, Rex. Can I ask Brian to give us his comment on Raj's presentation, please, Brian? Thank you.
Sure. No, I enjoyed that very much. And I think that I'll pick up on Rex's last point that we have a lot to do. Raj, you really did an excellent job presenting the vision of where we could go if we can have all of our data tied in together. Some of our research recently has shown that we're still having trouble getting all that data together in one place. And what's happening is we have the data silos, almost chasms between systems. And so what's happening is we're filling in those gaps with manual processes, with spreadsheets, which really are just a manual process at this point. And so to achieve that vision, we really need to focus on that basic fundamental task of building our data, having good data governance, data cleanliness, and tying it together so that we can do some of those really exciting things that you pointed out.
Thank you very much, Brian. Thank you very much, Raj, for your presentation. Great presentation indeed. Thank you very much. We now move on to the next stage. Just before we move on to the next stage, which is our next poll, I would just like to remind our attendees that you can ask questions via the chat box now until we reach the Q&A session, but it'll be great if you can start asking them now. Thank you very much. Let me now go to the last polling session. Just about to launch the poll, please. So if you could vote on this one, please. And our last question for today is, do you currently use modern collaborative technology for FP&A? Yes, we do. No, we do not, but plan to implement some in the near future. No, we do not, and do not plan to implement any in the near future. If you could vote, please, I'll give us another 10 seconds. Thank you, 59, 60, yep. I will now close the poll and I will now share it with the audience. So 24% says, yes, we do. 54% say no, we do not, but we plan on implementing something in the future. And 22% says no, we don't and don't plan to implement any. I would like to ask Raj to give us his view on the polling outcome, please. Raj?
Yes. Okay, this is quite interesting to look at. That means 54% currently do not have, but looks like they are. I mean, moving forward, they will implement in the future. I think this is what we are also expecting happening in the market trend, because as I mentioned earlier in my presentation, we have. Traditionally, planning is a finance process, and to collaborate with everyone in the organization is actually a huge task. And bringing it all together in a single room, normally you can see that's happening, but if that can be done efficiently or effectively, that is a huge improvement. I think that's where I think companies are trying to move forward to, and this is what resonated in the poll results.
Thank you, Raj. Brian, your view, please, before we move on. Thank you.
Sure. I guess I would offer some hope for the 76% who do not have a tool now. We think of collaborative tools in 3 flavors. There's collaborative communication, which is make sure that you are talking to people through, not just through email, but through Slack, Teams. A lot of our tools today actually have collaboration built in. There's also processes that are collaborative, and if you have a planning platform, that will have collaboration built in, but it's the idea of reaching out to people to get that input. And finally, people can be collaborative, and so no technology can be collaborative if your people and mindset isn't. So there are other opportunities to make sure that you can be collaborative even if your platform isn't fully in place yet.
Thank you very much, Brian. I'm now going to hide the poll, and we will now move on to our next session, which is Brian, yourself. And Brian will be taking us through bots in FP&A Teams. So over to you, Brian. Thank you.
Great. So we have this quote from a science fiction writer, Arthur C. Clarke. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. I love this quote because it's true and it's fun. This idea that technology and magic or something futuristic or something that we don't know is just beyond our grasp. I actually had more fun with quotes. I pulled up a couple other quotes. One is a quote from 1876 when a communications company, one of the leading communications companies, said, "This telephone has too many shortcomings to be seriously considered as the means of communication." Another from 1916, Charlie Chaplin, the famous actor, said, Cinema is little more than a fad. What audiences really want to see is flesh and blood on stage. And of course, Charlie Chaplin ended up becoming one of the biggest fad leaders there. And another great quote, there is no reason for any individual to have a computer in his home. This was said by the president, chairman, and founder of Digital Equipment Corporation, which boasted 140,000 employees in the 1970s and 1980s. So one of the leading thinkers on computers said, we'll never need this. And this really highlights, well, and then with all three of these examples, all three of those are currently on your phone that you're holding right now. And what I love about these quotes together is this idea that we don't know what we don't know. And for things that we don't know, things that are beyond our reach, that's what magic seems to us. It's this sense of we can't explain it, we can't see what's on the other side, and we don't like to admit what we don't know because we're not holding that magic wand and we don't know if we can control it. Today, one of the biggest areas of magic is artificial intelligence, which for the purposes of this discussion, I'll use synonymous with bots that are going to be on your team. And for years, we've had scripts and algorithms that will execute a set of instructions for you. What's different now is that these instructions seem to be able to act autonomously or semi-autonomously to push information to us that we may not have asked for. And this gives the illusion of thinking like a robot or like magic. If we can go to the next slide. I was introduced to this term X plus AI by Benjamin Pring. He's one of the speakers at our upcoming AFP virtual conference. And the idea is that someday soon, everything we do will be merged with and enhanced with artificial intelligence. The idea that AI is growing as a tool is growing as a tool, and it's going to help all roles. And what we do today will simply do it bigger, better, faster, and more of it than before. It will replace some roles, but even more, it'll be combined and ubiquitous within each role, and it'll generate new jobs for us. So for the individual, we should think about AI the way that a carpenter thinks about a hammer. It's the way to get work done. You could also think about it as the way that a finance professional uses spreadsheets. Remember, there was a time that spreadsheets were considered the disruptive technology. So what are some of these magical bots? You can call it robotic process automation, and it's running scripts to help you gather, transform, and load data. You can call it natural language generation, and it's writing reports that explain variances. Call it predictive analytics, and it runs 300 regressions to determine what is the best fit model, and you'll create a budget. Call it machine learning, and it'll read other databases in your system, and it'll create a forecast in seconds. As long as we think of it as magic, it's beyond our control. My goal in the next 3 slides is to give you 3 ways to demystify that magic and make these bots more accessible. Turning to the next slide. The first takeaway is to personify the bot. Now, this is not the exact picture, but an example of what one of our members had said about creating Barb. Barb stands for the best accounting robot. And what she did and her team did at a large global insurance company was they physically created something that looked like a robot so they could think of it as a member of the team. Then they took Barb and they set Barb up in a cube because Barb really lived as a series of executable scripts on a laptop that they kept at the cube. And Barb had her own set of access rights and passwords and provisions. They personified it, they made it less scary, but they also gave it a job description. They said, this is what Barb is responsible for. This is what we're expecting it to do and when to do it. And they thought about that as the same way of somebody on the team. And suddenly, it wasn't some super smart idea of a robot that was going to do what they can do. It was somebody else that they had to interact with to get their jobs done. Continuing with that idea on the next slide, just like you have your own set of coworkers, your coworkers have certain things that they do really well and certain things that they don't. So for example, there may be somebody on your team who is a great model builder, and somebody else may be your go-to person for accounting knowledge. And a third person may be great at making presentations. Well, if bots are on your team, think about what they're good at or what they're bad at. For example, bots are great at routines. They will reliably execute a script at a specified time and predictably deliver an output. Bots are great at economies of scale. They can cycle through mass calculations. They can pull in information and collate and process very quickly. Some would say that they could find that needle in a haystack, that small bit of information, that unsuspected correlation. But if they can find the needle in the haystack really well, or better than we can do as people, what they can't do is see the storm that's coming on the horizon that will blow that haystack down. The implication for this is that bots will miss the nuance and they might throw away a piece of data that doesn't fit within their predefined specifications, that outlier or that fuzzy data that a content expert might see as relevant. Conversely, they might push forward where an SME, a subject matter expert, would say, stop, this is wrong, this is incorrect. So what we can do that our coworker, the bot, can't do is put context. We can ask the right question and say, this is what it should be working on. This makes sense or this doesn't make sense. And we need to, as people, focus on the human aspects that we're very good at and use the bot as the tool. The third point that I'd like to make is, again, the same way that you have performance reviews and check-ins for your human teammates, we need to do the same thing for the bot teammates. It's not magic that it runs and it knows something and is smarter than us. Instead, it actually is someone like a colleague that you want to have one-on-one meetings with and coaching sessions with. Bots need to be retrained. The data that's coming in that they're working on may change. The correlations and the assumptions that they're based on may change. The results that they're giving, the relevance of those results may change, and they need to be fine-tuned. So with your bot, think about the period of which you're going to review their output. Is it weekly? Is it monthly? Is it quarterly? How are you going to review it? And what are the specific measurements? Now, once you get into measurements, we're going to start talking about SMART goals and SMART measurements for your bots. SMART is an acronym for specifically what are we measuring? Be specific about what it is you're measuring. Make sure it's something that can be measured. Make sure it's attainable, relevant, and timely. And also, we all know that sometimes organizations can be reorganized, that we shift around. We end up doing different jobs. We end up reporting to different people. We need to think about the bots on the team in the same way. There's a couple movie references to that explain how people think about bots. In some cases, we think about robots as the Terminator, this very scary thing that's coming to get us. And sometimes we think about bots as C-3PO, the character from Star Wars that is there to help and is a little bit funny and quirky, but is there to help us fundamentally be better at our jobs. If we take away the magic part and we understand what bots are, what we can do with them, and what they can't do and where we can excel, that'll help us to think about bots as good team members and help us to be good team members, utilizing them to their fullest potential. Thank you, Hans.
Thank you very much, Brian. Thank you for a great insight into and trying to demystify for a lot of people what bots is all about, what AI is all about, but also for giving quite a few pointers as to how we are integrating bots into the FP&A team. Brian, thank you very much. We will now move on to our next presentation, which is from Amanda. Amanda, the stage is yours. Ready when you are. Thank you.
Thank you, Hans. Hello, everyone. Trust you guys have gained great insights from our speakers. Here comes to a part which should be interesting to a lot of you guys. Whether you are an active job seeker, hiring manager who is actively hiring, or someone who is just curious on what's going on in the market. I'm going to talk about the current hiring trends in the region. We've gathered information and market insights from offices across the region, including Singapore, Malaysia, Japan, China, and Hong Kong. I'll be focusing on 4 key points. First, what's the FP&A hiring trends under COVID? We can actually see a surge of demands of FP&A talents across the region. Despite cost reduction measures, companies are focusing on hiring strong FP&A talents as they see it as a value-adding function to the company, and as you guys voted earlier on, as the influencer of the company. So FP&A roles actually get exceptional approval on headcounts, even during headcount freeze. However, companies are not just looking for traditional FP&A talents. Here brings to the second point. So what are the new skills and key skills companies are looking for? Next slide, please. Companies are looking for agile, tech-savvy FP&A talents who has experience in data analytics, business intelligence, and business transformation. The ability to utilize business metrics to perform analysis from different angles and in an efficient manner. Financial modeling skill set has always been grouped under corporate finance. However, companies are looking for this skill set from an FP&A talent because company wants to venture into new business to generate new revenue stream. The trust equation that Rex mentioned earlier on is also very important. Companies are looking for someone with exceptional communication skills who are able to translate financial terms to non-finance stakeholders and be able to be empathetic to different business leaders to support the business as a whole. Thirdly, I'll talk about the challenges companies are facing when they are hiring FP&A talents. FP&A has always been a lean team. If we're talking about 9 to 10 people in an FP&A team, it's already considered to be quite a sizable team. So the candidate pool is quite small to begin with. And companies are looking for someone who knows the industry inside out. So they want someone who is from the particular industry, which further limits the candidate pool. A lot of candidates in the market are generalists. So they'll also be looking after financial accounting, treasury, taxation, etc. However, companies are looking for FP&A specialists who dedicated 100% of the time doing FP&A. Last but not least, language and communication skills, which is something cannot be seen on one CV. Even we can find the perfect candidate who checks all the boxes, but we might need to restart the search again if the candidate don't have the communication skills and not be able to fit in the culture dynamics of the company. Lastly, I'd like to talk about the recruitment process under the new normal. In the older days, we're talking about last year, 2019, 80% of the recruitment process can be done online through Skype, video conference, etc. But at the end of the process, we would still prefer to meet the candidate face-to-face. However, in 2020, things have changed. Companies are comfortable to extend an offer even without meeting the candidate face-to-face. And more surprisingly, candidates are actually comfortable to join a company and resign from his or her own position without actually stepping into the office. So business process has definitely been more tech-driven nowadays. And there's no doubt that there is a boom of technology and healthcare-related industries. Increased number of companies are coming to us to help build the team for them. This is a finding of the current market in the region. 2020 is definitely a year that tells us anything can change in a blink of an eye. So anything could happen. PageGroup is here to keep close to the market and update you guys with the latest trend. Please visit our website for more details. And if you'd like to have a private conversation, feel free to reach out to myself and the team after the webinar. Thanks, guys.
Amanda, thank you very much for a great presentation, and thank you for pulling all the insight from all the different regions within the Pan-Asian. Thank you very much. It was very, very insightful. Thank you. This nicely takes us to our concluding element of our webinar today. It's just food for thought. I mean, we've talked about building winning FP&A teams for the new normal, from what are the skill set required, to how we're dealing with working from home, to also looking at bots and looking at new technologies, and also the trends in the recruitment post-COVID. But this is a great piece of quote and research from Carnegie Institute of Technology, which puts things into perspective. 85% of our financial success is due to skills in human engineering, your personality, ability to communicate, negotiate, and lead. So the softer skills, only 15% is due to technical, even though we are all moving much more towards technical skills. So thank you very much for this. And we now move on to our Q&A session for today. I would like to give the mic to Larissa, who will take us through the Q&A session. Larissa, over to you, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hans. Thank you so much, everyone. Great perspective on FP&A team building. Thank you so much, the team, for sharing your experience. We have a lot of questions. I would like to remind everyone that please continue to send your questions. If we don't have enough time to answer all of them, we will do this in offline regime. We will send you emails with our answers. So the time for first question, and question to Rex. Rex, can you succeed in FP&A without strong technical accounting skills? What is your view on this?
Thanks for the question. Yeah, my belief is FP&A is a team, right? It's never about the individuals. But in terms of the team, the technical skills definitely is required. However, I think what you heard today from many of the presentations is about the communication, the leadership skills, the ability. I think one of the slides Hans just shared, right, is about 15% is the technicals, but 85% is actually the human, the emotional aspect skills required. I think it's important to think beyond just the technicals, getting the voice heard, getting the influence across the table. That is actually matters that counts. Thanks.
Thank you so much for your answer, Rex. The next question is to Anna. Anna, I find that the finance functions has been slow to adopt techniques for forecasting. Why do you think this is the case? The example of those techniques are Python, programming, machine learning, and all of those. What is your view, Anna?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Yeah, there could be a lot of reasons for that, of course, but in my view, one of the main reasons is lack of clarity on the goals and objectives, because not everyone understands not only what needs to be done, but why it needs to be done. So having engagement of the team is important, but also having adoption also means, translating and making it a team goal, not an individual goal. Because how many times we see that, team goals precede or the individual goals precede the team goals. So I think clarity on the goal setting, but also the next one is accountability is one of the reasons that it can be done slowly. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anna. The next question is to you, Svenja. What is the difference or intersection between FP&A and data science analytics? How do we marry these two functions together in order to maximize benefits for our organization? What is your view, Svenja?
That's an interesting question. Thank you. So to me, it's important, first of all, to understand the reality of your business partners, to understand where your business is operating in and where you as a team can add the most benefit and be most relevant to your partners. And then I think it's important to find those sweet spots between the different roles of FP&A teams to play at that part where the business gets the most value of it. So it's really depending on the needs of your customers.
Thank you so much for your answer, Svenja. Excellent. The next question is to you, Raj. What new trends and technologies do you see coming up in the next few years that would help FP&A go to that leading stage of analytical maturity?
Thanks for the questions. Okay, the new trends, as you've seen here, I think how to be agile is something that is what customers are expecting. So having moving away from from a capex to an opex type of a landscape. They are also looking at that. So that means more adoption on the cloud. That's a trend every organization are moving into, so that they want to keep their organization lean, so that they don't spend too much time on their fixed cost itself, right? So the trend is moving towards cloud, and especially on FP&A works. That means everything is like we're focusing more on the more high value activities rather than on the low value activities itself.
Thank you so much, Raj. Thank you for your answer. The next question is to you, Brian. Do you think that data science will become a compulsory skill set for a finance professional, FP&A professional to have, in contrary to the classical qualifications like CA or CPA?
No, I don't. When I think of data science, I think of PhDs in data, and I don't think that finance should go there, because we are finance people and our job is to be stewards of company capital. It's not to be putting together databases and doing those deep dives. The other reason I don't think so is that the next generation of tools that are coming out for data are going to automate a lot of the things that the data scientists do. What we need to become, I believe, are data engineers, being able to gather it from existing databases and sources and use it. But I don't think that we need to be building those databases and inside that technical back end.
Thank you so much, Brian. Great. Amanda, the next question is to you. As we see in more jobs linking roles of computer engineering with FP&A roles, would you say that this is the latest trend at the moment, in particular in Asian market?
LinkedIn definitely is very useful when we search for candidates. But I think, again, as we mentioned just now, a lot of communication skills and people skill, you cannot really be seen on one CV or from a LinkedIn profile. So I guess as a recruitment consultant, I guess our duties or job is to help the clients, help the company to screen what exactly the companies are looking for in terms of the skill set, soft skill set.
Thank you so much, Amanda. And the last question is to you, Hans. When communications with teams, what is the difference between the influencer and the storyteller?
Very good question. Thank you very much, whoever asked this question. The line, I think, is blurry between the storyteller and the influencer from one perspective. But I think the key thing the influencer does is they know their target market, they know who they are pointing to, and they are able to put together strategies to influence those people, compared to the storyteller who's probably telling the story to a mass market. So I would say the influencers got much more focus, know what he wants to achieve by delivering that message, and knows the target market and really works towards influencing that market. I think that's the key difference. Thank you, Larissa.
Thank you so much. I would like to conclude this Q&A session. We have more questions, but as I said, we will be able to answer them offline because of the time reasons. Back to you, Hans. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Larissa. A great Q&A session. And as Larissa mentioned, the remainder of the questions that we've got through you guys, we will try and answer them via email from the member of our panel. Just to let you know of upcoming digital meetings, please do register and join us. We've got one coming on the 10th of November, Power of Driver-Based Planning. There will be a third Digital Pan-Asian meeting on the 24th. Details will be shared soon. But the very next one is on October the 22nd, 2020, which is on key success factors of connected and collaborative planning. With this, I would like to say a big thank you to our sponsors, which are SAP, Michael Page, and AFP. A big thank you to all the members of our panel, our speakers. A thank you to Larissa for joining us for the Q&A session. And most of all, a big thank you to our members and webinar attendees for making this possible and for giving us your insight on all the poll questions. We thank you very much, and I hope you will join us in the next one. As soon as I close off the webinar, you will be getting the survey to fill in. Your feedback is very valuable, so please do that. Thank you very much, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody. Thank you very much. Bye-bye now. With that, we conclude our webinar for today. Thank you.